In part 6, we look at damage and trauma. Not just that caused to the child, but the damage and trauma carried by adults as well. We look at why society's love of behaviourism has created generational trauma and continues to still harm our children today, and why our own needs as adults can influence our choices around using it. We look at the pressures placed on parents today and how that attacks our sense of self and self-worth. We then look at all the negative messages around autism and how these add not just to the trauma of the autistic individual, but to parents also. Finally, we look at how all of this then causes us to ignore our own gut instincts, lose our confidence in our own abilities to parent, and instead of leaving our child to be their natural selves, we let a societal opinion drive us to force our child to change into something they aren't. And we look at all the harm that that causes. Damage is historical and it's also generational. We often pass on what we learnt as children. If we believe our parents were good parents, if we believed them that we were mean and manipulative and needed to be ignored and isolated to become good adults, then that's exactly what we're going to do to our children, because we think that's what good parenting is. And it's often the only way we can reconcile two opposing things, that our parents loved us and our parents did things that harmed us. Behaviourism is everywhere we look in society. Now, anyone who knows me knows I am very anti-ABA and other behaviourism practices. And I 100% don't blame the parents for using them, because we are told that this is the best thing out there. And we're told it may be the only way to help your child reach their full potential. So parents have no way of knowing what a terrible light that is. After all, it's professionals, experts, people we trust who are giving them this bad information. And even if we feel in our gut that maybe it's not okay to treat someone that way, we may justify the emotional abuse that behaviourism teaches us to do with, well, at least it's rewards and not punishment. Or they need this. If I don't do this, they'll turn out nasty and spoiled. After all, this is a very strong message in society. We hear it everywhere. But in fact, the research has shown the opposite. Children whose emotional and survival needs are met not only have positive modelled behaviour to copy, they also have the capacity to meet the needs of others because they aren't stuck in survival mode themselves. The thing is, if we as parents were raised in behaviourist households, then we are stuck in survival mode too, and it's important to recognise that. And doing that can be scary. It can feel vulnerable. We believe that we need to be perfect to be safe. So recognising the damage and dealing with it can feel quite confronting. But if we don't, then we are stuck keeping this cycle of powerlessness, anxiety, distrust, shame, frustration, and withdrawal. And we don't want to do that to our children. But to stop it, we need to first heal ourselves. We first need to address our own pain and our own distrust and our own damage, and then we can operate from a place of capacity and not scarcity. And we are all vulnerable to this because most of us are in survival mode at least some of the time. And if we're honest with ourselves, our panic monkey and dino brain do a lot more of our thinking for us than it may be comfortable to admit. Let's be honest, the pressure to be a good parent today is huge. And most of it is unrealistic. I find it ridiculous that a lot of parenting advice assumes that we're these calm, collected Zen beings who can instantly co-regulate with our child because we have such an oasis of safety within ourselves. That not co-regulating with them is a choice. That we're not these panicked human beings looking at this ball of raging fury that's attacking us and going, what do I do now? How can I protect myself? Who isn't fighting down our own dino brain who wants to go in on the attack and our panic monkey who's flooding our brain with anxiety. It's terrifying seeing your child in danger, but we're also feeling in danger at that time too and not knowing what to do about it. And This was me a lot more of the time than I care to admit. Not the punching or even threatening to hit. I never hit my child. But the rage and the shouting was definitely there. All too often, Dino Brain got the better of me. I didn't want to shout. I couldn't help myself. And it took me to learn how to manage my own trauma, how to find that space of calm and healing within myself before I could create that sense of calm and healing for my child. You can't create what you don't have available. And a lot of parenting guides don't give us the grace for that. They seem to assume that we aren't living with a whole load of other stresses, financial, emotional, all of our past trauma, our doubts about our own self-worth, especially when we've tied our self-worth to being a good parent and all of the expectations and the unrealistic expectations that go along with that. We all want this miracle child that doesn't exist, so parents can look on in envy and we can go, yes, we did a good job. Often you hear that you're a good parent if your child is healthy, safe and happy. But let's be honest, there's a lot more expectations out there about what it takes to be a good parent, and they're mostly centered in things outside both yours and your child's control. But still, if these things don't happen, society hangs a big, bad parent sign around your neck. And that's something I struggled with massively as a parent, a lot of shame, especially because some days my target was even lower than the basic 3. There were some days where alive was the target for the day. And that's before you get to having an autistic child. As a grown adult and being autistic, it feels awful to hear that parents grieve our existence, that they see every day as a war against us, that they dream of the day that they can eradicate our neurotype. But as a parent, given the messages society currently sells us, it's understandable. Hurtful, but understandable. It's no wonder some parents grieve when they learn their child's autistic. They're not grieving for their child. They've just had everything they have that ties their self-worth to their parenthood ripped away from them. They've made all of those goals of good parenting unrealistic. And the fact those goals aren't realistic doesn't matter to Panic Monkey, who is shouting loudly, from this point on, no matter what you do, you will be judged as a bad parent. And that's before they realise about the lack of information and the lack of services they're going to have to battle against just to get their child's basic human needs met. It's overwhelming, and it can be a lot easier to blame the autism and try to battle that than try to deal with the other genuine threats which need to be addressed to properly and effectively support your child. If only my child were cured and not autistic anymore, they wouldn't struggle and I wouldn't feel like a bad parent. It's a comforting thought, but it's not true, and it's not a helpful goal to aim for. And if you do want to help your child, it's really important that you're honest with yourself and address those feelings, or Panic Monkey is going to end up making your decisions for you. The problem is when you fight the autism and try to remove the autistic from the child, it's not just an incorrect belief, it's harmful. Trying to make us like everyone else causes massive damage for us. It's like trying to force a penguin to fly instead of allowing it to swim. Not only are we never going to do it well, it takes enormous effort better spent into leaning into our strengths. And being something we're not creates enormous stress for our nervous system, creating long-term and often disabling mental health issues. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to repair that damage. At my age, I don't think I'm ever going to fully recover from my last burnout. Each time the damage gets a little worse and gets a little deeper. As parents, if we're going to be a safe space for our children, we need to focus on repairing our own damage. So Dino Brain and Panic Monkey aren't so much in the driving seat. And we're not governed by fears of being judged as a bad parent or what other people are thinking about us. When we do that, then we have the capacity to focus on working with the autistic brain and helping it work to its best, which means we can create the optimum conditions for our children to thrive. It doesn't mean there won't be bumps, because there will. The world isn't designed for autistics. But it does mean that we as autistics will have capacity to manage those bumps and tools in our toolbox to be able to deal with them. In week 6, we focus on how to identify past damage, both our own and our children's, and how to manage it. We look at how we store emotional memories that Panic Monkey relies on to judge threat and how to address them. We look at how to identify whether the no response from Panic Monkey is to avoid a damaging situation or is because of past trauma that no longer relates to the situation. And we look at how to re-establish connection and trust that has been damaged from past mistakes. This was a really quick gallop through the 5 keys, basically an overview, so you can understand a little more about autism and the autistic brain. The 6-week course goes into a lot more depth, and we will also have a group for you to share advice and ask questions as they come up during the week. Even little changes can make a huge difference, such as explaining to one parent about the overload that happens in fun environments. Teaching them how to pace out the day and how to manage the battery changed everything. Now they're able to go out confident they now have the tools to avoid the meltdowns that regularly destroyed trips out before. If you enjoyed this course and found it helpful, spread the word. This course is free and will remain so we can help as many parents and carers as possible understand and support the young autistics in their care. Thank you, and hopefully see you on the 6-week course.